How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be showing some tips on how to install subwoofers in your Subaru BRZ. The reason I'm making this video is because the sub installations on BRZs I've seen online haven't been very explanatory, or they did a lot of extra things that I felt were unnecessary almost. So in this video, I hope I can kind of make it easy and break it down so you guys at home that are installing subs in your BRZ can kind of have a easier experience in the process. So here's what my trunk's looking like. I have a 12-inch sub from Scar Audio. I believe that's an 800 watt amp, and then that's all my random junk. And I have a Aftermarket Headunit from Crutchfield, and it made wiring it all a lot easier because with the aftermarket radio it already has the RCA connects on the back, which just goes straight to the amp. That way you don't have to worry about doing any extra wiring to get your stock head unit to wire up to the amp. Also, the reason I got an aftermarket head unit in the first place was because the screen on my stock one was like going out, not working anymore. So I figured I'd go ahead and get one, and it has Apple CarPlay, which is convenient. If you're thinking about installing subs in yours, I'd just go ahead and get a new head unit anyways, because the stock ones aren't that great, and it makes everything a whole lot easier in the process of installing the subs. So I'll go ahead and get started here in the engine bay. Come down here in this corner, you can see this rubber grommet, and you can see where that blue wire goes down into that little tube that comes out. You have to poke a hole through that tube and then feed the wire through. It was pretty difficult to do, but it's manageable. What I used was a wire coat hanger and had a hook on it. I fed the hook in through into the down by the footwell. And then once you have that hook from the coat hanger through, you can latch the wire onto it and pull it back through. And then from there, I took the wire up underneath and came over here to the battery. You're gonna wanna disconnect the negative so the car doesn't have any power. And then disconnect the positive to attach the wire to. As you can see here, you can just unscrew that nut, slide the wire down, and then screw the nut back on. And then here's where I mounted the fuse. That way if anything shorts out, it doesn't come back to the battery. So if we come back down here into the footwell, you can see where the wire comes through. It's kind of dark. You can see where the wire comes through, and then I basically just tucked it behind these trim pieces. It wasn't that difficult. You can just slide it under there. Your hand should be fine. And it comes under there. You can kind of see it there. And then under this piece, you can pop this piece out pretty easily. It's not going to go back completely flush. Like right there, it sticks up a little bit. But it's basically unnoticeable, and it runs all along up under this trim. So after you run it along there, you can tuck it up under this piece also, and then run it in between the seat. Right here is really the only area where you can see the wire. I've seen some people online take out this whole door card, but I didn't feel like going through all that hassle, and that's really all you can see. And no one's ever in the back seats anyway, so I didn't really mind. And then you run it back through the trunk, you'll just take the seats down. And there will be a hinge where the back seats lay down. You'll want to run that wire underneath the hinge. So after you run that wire underneath the hinge, you want to take out the carpet in your floor trunk. It just comes right out. And then the wire should be back there in the corner. And after you do that, just pull it through and bring it to the amp. Don't hook anything up yet, just get the wires back here. And then there will also be a ground wire you need to run. Once you pull up this carpet, there should be like bolts back there that you'll be able to hook up the ground wire to. And then after you hook up the ground wire, you're all good to go for this side of the car. Okay, now that you've got the power and ground wire run to the amp in the back, you want to hook up the RCA cables and the remote turn on wire, so that way your amp turns on when the radio's on and it's not always running to drain your battery. I'm not going to take all of this out, but it's fairly self-explanatory. Whenever your aftermarket head unit is out, on the back there'll be two RCA connects. I ran mine to the ones that were labeled rear left and rear right, I believe, and they work pretty good. And then for the remote turn on wire, you'll have to look in the manual for the head unit to find out which wire it is. What you'll do is you'll cut that wire that you find and then splice in the remote turn on wire that should come with your amp wiring kit. And then after that, you want to feed all those cables down. So once these panels are out, you'll be able to see down in there. And if you pop this piece down here out, I believe, you'll just use that wire coat hanger method again, and you'll be able to run those wires down from over here, and then they can be tucked up underneath and then run across and then into the trim pieces like was done on this side. It's just opposite. And then after that, you'll run it back the same way you did the other ones. Go across the trim and then across in between the seat and the side of the car, and then underneath that seat hinge again, and then the wires will be in the trunk. So here's a better look as to where I ran those wires. They came out, I ran them across here. You run that across, and then over here, that pop clip right there, I took a flathead, popped that out so I could get all those wires behind it, and then just ran them down across like the driver's side. So then once you get all your wires to the trunk, you can see there the thick blue one is the power wire, the black one is the ground wire, the very skinny blue one on the left is the remote turn on wire, and then the double stranded wire on top is the speaker wire, which you'll run into the sub. And all the stuff on the back of the amp should be labeled, so it should be self-explanatory. And then over here on this side, you'll have the RCA connects, and those will also be self-explanatory. It doesn't matter which color you put in left or right, just as long as you have the same color in both on the amp and the back of the head unit. So for me, I did right to red because they both start with R. And then after that, you'll take the speaker wire that's back here and then hook it up into the side of the sub, and then everything should be good to go. But yeah, that's about it. It just started raining, so I finished just in time. I did this installation with my dad. It took us about 3 hours. I'm gonna go inside. But yeah, like I was saying before the rain interrupted, I did this installation with my dad. It took about 3 hours, I would say. Keep in mind, I've never installed subs before. I didn't know how to do it. I watched the video from Crutchfield. I'll link it in the description. It was pretty explanatory. It helped a lot. But yeah, it wasn't that hard of a process. It was more time consuming than anything. But overall, pretty easy to do by yourself. If you have any questions or didn't really understand what I was talking about in parts of the video, put them in the comments. I'll do my best to explain better, because I'm sure I brushed over some stuff. I'll also leave links in the description to everything I used to install the subs. It wasn't a whole lot, but like I said earlier in the video, the aftermarket head unit really helped a lot because there was no extra steps that I had to take. You just had to plug it in. The only real wiring you had to do was splicing the remote turn on wire into the head unit to run it back to the amp, and that was about it. And like I said before, any questions, just leave them in the comments. And I think that about covers everything. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped.